Hey everybody, welcome to Landscape Rescue. My name's Stuart Moore and we're here at Lowe's and we're gonna do a shopping video. I haven't seen a whole lot of stuff on clearance, so we were gonna run through that real quick. I was thinking we should talk about mulches and we should talk about tools.
That's it, I'm out of here.
If you're having issues with mulch and if you got some questions, this is gonna be the video for you. Same thing with tools. This is the Lowe's where there was rows and rows. This was the Lowe's when there was rows of hibiscus. I don't really think it's appropriate to rhyme in casual conversation, so I wanted to apologize to the more sensitive viewers.
Apology not accepted.
So basically what we've got on the clearance rack is some hardy hibiscus. It's a good one. If you don't have some of that in your life, get some in your life, especially for $12.50. These are amazing. Keep your eyeballs out for the Luna. The Luna is the one that really impressed me this year, and I got it at Lowe's for like $8.50 when all of their shrubs went to 50% off. I picked up some Lunas, and I think they were in a 2-gallon pot. Absolutely gorgeous. They keep doing work in the landscape for me, and they only get like 3x3. These are the Head Over Heels series, and they get on the larger side, but they have cool leaves. I mean, there is something to be said about that, but you can use them in less places because they just get bigger. All of this Emerald Gaiety.
That is the ugliest thing I have ever saw. Yeah!
Emerald Gaiety, Moon Shadow Euonymus. It's all kind of the same, just kind of like old school junky. I used to maintain a shopping center and they had a bunch of this Emerald Gaiety that we had to trim into a box kind of hedge, and I just kind of like, what a stupid thing to build a hedge out of.
Be curious, not judgmental.
So anyway, and it was running and it was popping up in the middle of the flower beds. I would rather eat a foot-long cheese coney off of a toilet seat in a public restroom than plant this in my house.
My God, that's disgusting.
Look, see, they have more. I don't know who does the ordering at these places, but clearly they've never planted plants before, because who in the world? Green Juniper, it's a big one. It's a big one. It'll overpower the landscape, especially how small people are making flower beds right now. I don't really see a place for a Green Juniper anymore like you used to. Yeah, 4 to 6 feet tall, 6 to 8 feet wide. So you'd have to have an 8-foot flower bed to encompass one of these, which if you're following the channel, you know when you use all the jazz, it's gonna get 8 feet wide. And these little giant arborvitae, these are kind of neat too. Little giant arborvitae, $30. Not a stellar deal. Like, I'm not gonna text my mom about it. 4x4 in a nice little ball. That's a little bit more manageable, right? Because I only have to come have a 4-foot flower bed, which is usually about the average. If it was up to me, everybody have 8-foot flower beds and I wouldn't ever be able to find clearance plants because you guys would be just raiding the place. I feel like that's happening already. I did see a pretty good deal over here. $30, $29.99 for these little Blue Point junipers. That's not necessarily a bad price. Now granted, 3-gallon probably. I would like for you guys to find these when they're 50% off. I think that would be a lot better of a deal. 5 to 7 feet wide, that's at the bottom. They're kind of Hershey Kiss shaped, fatter in the old midriff, like 42-year-old Stuart. A little thicker in the midriff than they used to be. These would be a good anchor plant if you could come off of the house a little bit, and would give you some height. So it would give you a 12-foot worth of height and give you some blue color. You do want to watch out for bagworms on those. And some people say spider mites, but I don't really feel like spider mites are a huge deal on junipers like they are like spruce, like dwarf Alberta spruce seem to get spider mites. Just keep your eye out on them. And then Emerald Arborvitae, $45 for a little 5-gallon. Again, not a spectacular price. We buy a lot of clearance in the Springfield metro area, and Republic is in that area. I've been getting hit up on Messenger and things like that about mulches and soil amendments, and it's a question that I get asked about a lot at my nursery where I work. I'm a huge fan of the shallow cultivation method.
It is not widely known, but the roots of plants are able to develop more easily in an environment rich in old roots.
You're really just cultivating where you're going to be planting the plant. So you're digging up just that little area.
The roots are quickly able to access the passageways left by decomposing roots. In this situation, they only have to work really hard once they reach the extremities of the passageways. This means that they can root deeper year after year and ensures that there is even more soil and water available for growth.
Now this is very important when you're going to maintain the integrity of that mycelial network.
Just like every other organism on the planet, a plant does not function independently. Health and growth depends on a partnership between specialist bacteria and fungi. Plants, fungi, and bacteria form a wonderful system based on trading products.
That network of fungus that's underneath your ground that's feeding your plants.
Fungi and bacteria supply nutrients from the soil that would otherwise be hard to reach. In exchange for this, plants supply sugars in the form of glucose,
Stabilizing phosphorus in exchange for simple sugar. We want to keep that as intact as possible, but when we till, we destroy that. So what I recommend for soil amendments is put your soil amendments down, then put your butcher paper or do whatever you're going to do, right? And then mulch on top of that. Google the shallow cultivation method and it'll explain it a little bit more. Let me touch on soil amendments very quickly because I feel like we might overcomplicate that a little bit. So here we go. So cottonburr compost, they have it at $5.98 for a bag of cottonburr compost. So cottonburr compost is really just the slag from producing cotton, right? So cotton plant, and it ends up looking, reaching this bag so we can see, it ends up looking like decomposed mulch, guys. So why not just get mulch? You see what I mean? This is what happens when we let our mulch do its work over the winter time. That's why I like to mulch in the fall. So by the time all of this stuff goes on sale, beginning of June, right? Kind of once the spring rush is over, then they start putting stuff on sale. And then we come in here and snatch them up because we have beds that have had mulch on them for 6 months, right? Going through the freeze-thaw cycle. The beneficial bacteria has been munching on them, the earthworms has been munching on it, and our soil is as black as coffee grounds. You could use something like this as a top dress, but here's the thing, you're already top dressing with mulch. And if you use pole chips or arborist chips or something like that, and you're getting free deliveries of arborist chips or pole chips, by the time you're ready to plant, you know, depending on the time frame, but definitely if you leave them on there for a year, this is what the bottom of your, this is what that underneath your, that top layer of mulch, this is what it's going to look like, because the bioactivity on that stuff is fantastic. There's oxygen exchange, there's moisture exchange there. It's going to do good stuff for your soil. So here's another one. This is Black Cow, K-O-W. You see what they did there? $5.28 a bag. So this is a 1 cubic foot bag. 1 cubic foot bag for $5.28. It's pretty dark, zero smell. So you know that it's been broken down relatively well. So if it was going to be stinky, we would smell it. It is what it is. It happens. Again, a lot of this is going to have to do with timing. Okay, so I can get composted humus and cow manure at Walmart for $1 in a one cubic foot bag. So if I'm going to spend, I don't know, there's probably 54 bags on here. So if I'm going to spend $54 and top dress everything, I'll probably just use the cheapest stuff I can find that has humus and cow manure in it, then put my butcher paper down, then put my mulch down and sit on it, right? Because it doesn't matter, you know, to me, it's not going to matter what the quality, if it's well rotted or not, because I'm going to rot it in the landscape. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's a little hot to take it right out of the cow. Who knows how long it's been sitting on the pallet. So if I get a hint of a little bit of a smell, I could probably use it as a top dress, not burn anything up, because you're using a very small amount. But you know, ideally you would want this to rot in the landscape for a little while before you planted something in it. This, no smell, it could go right on, no big deal. But at $5.28, guys, that's a pretty big investment, being that we can buy an entire bag of mulch for $1. Same thing with mushroom compost. Mushroom compost is what they grow the hyphae in, because we know the mushroom, and I think I've talked to this before, I know we kind of talked about this in the Facebook group, but the mushroom is the fruiting body of the hyphae, which is the actual tree, right? So you think there's this giant tree underground. That's the mycelium, that's the mycelial network, that's the hyphae. And the apple, right, is the mushroom, right? So the fruiting body, that's not the main body. The main body is underground, and the fruiting body is the mushroom. So when they're growing mushrooms, right, they grind up hay, they grind up oak, they use oak pellets like you would use in your stove. They get them nice and wet, they put them in a bag, they dry them a little bit so their moisture content is where it needs to be. Then they inoculate them, or they'll inoculate everything and then put it in bags. And then they cut a little, once they get a built up hyphae in there, they cut little holes, and then that tells the hyphae that now it can send a fruiting body out, and that's what they harvest. Okay. So they'll do that a couple times. They'll harvest some mushrooms off of these big blocks. They'll harvest a couple, and then they will open up that bag and they'll dump it on a compost pile, or they'll sell it. So this is more an industrial, a way for them to kind of recoup some of the costs, right? Then they sell the bags of compost. The benefit of this is you're getting composted hardwood mulch usually, and it might have some remnants of the mycelial network in there and some dormant fungal spores in here. For $4, I guess 3/4 of a cubic foot, like 0.75 cubic feet. So it's not even a cubic foot. You're 25% away from being a cubic foot. It seems a little pricey to me, guys, when you can cultivate your very own mycelial network by just giving things some time. Start growing plants in there, inoculate your soil with the Dr. Earth Grow at $7 for a 4-pound bag. It just seems like that's a better way to do it, because you're inoculating your plants on an individual basis, and then they are growing the mycelial network, or the mycelial network is growing in conjunction with the plant, and you're spreading it all throughout there. We have a subscriber, actually we have 3 subscribers that I've seen mushroom questions on. Mushrooms are always a good thing. Unfortunately, 2 of them had the stinky staghorn mushroom. So, I mean, yeah, you're not going to hurt anything by just taking the fruit and body off, and I would definitely get rid of those dead man fingers or whatever. I'm not going to tell you what the other names are, because this is a relatively easygoing channel. Think about that when it comes to soil amendments. Think about the price per foot that it's going to take, and are you going to really make any real impact over putting some paper down, putting some sort of like barrier, a biodegradable barrier between the weeds and the mulch, and just using free pole chips and just mulching everything, right? And sit on it for a while, and then if you want some more aesthetically pleasing mulch later, you can top dress with that and use a lot less. Peat moss, another thing, I get this question all the time, like to top dress with peat moss. It's expensive, you get a lot. I mean, 3 cubic feet worth of peat moss, which is usually what these big bales are. 3 cubic feet, they're compressed, so you have to like uncompress it, right? So you throw it in a wheelbarrow. Sometimes you can rehydrate it a little bit, fluff it up and break it up. But it's $12 for that 3 cubic foot bale. Well, if you remember, Walmart's mulch went on sale for $1 a bag. That's 13 bags, 2 cubic feet worth of mulch. Just saying. Another thing we're going to talk about now that we're kind of on mulches, so let's talk about this. Rubber mulch. I've been asked what I think about rubber mulch. I think somebody's texted me or something and asked me what my opinions were on rubber mulch. Rubber mulch to me is right up there with gravel. It doesn't add any kind of roughage. It doesn't add anything to the mycelial network. There is no purpose for either one of those in a landscape setting other than keeping weeds down, kind of, and the fact that they don't break down, which some people think is an accolade. I think it is, like, why am I putting it in my garden? I do want it to break down. I want mulch to break down. The faster my mulch breaks down, the more of that carbon is getting into the ground, the more my plants can utilize that decomposed organic matter. That's why I like it That's why I use a lot of mulch. That's why my mulch is very thick. That's why I don't use weed barrier. Now, if I was doing rubber mulch, which I've never had to use it. I've always been able to talk people out of it. I would probably use weed barrier with that, because if they changed their mind, then they could pull it up. But I don't have to worry about building a secondary soil profile on top of it like I would mulch, because it doesn't break down. It doesn't break down, but it's also $10, this little tiny bag. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah, this is black or brown. Premium shredded rubber mulch. What is premium mulch? What does premium rubber mulch actually mean? It was made of Goodyear tires. It's just recycled tires. Okay, here's another mulch here. Oh. This is Preen Mulch. Okay, so it's got a pre-emergent in it. $5 a bag. So I could do 5 bags for the price of this and then put my own pre-emergent on top. We know that the pre-emergent's only going to last about 3 months anyway. So what happens after the pre-emergent is gone? You're going to have to buy more pre-emergent. So let's not spend an extra $4 on mulch when we're just going to have to use pre-emergent again anyway. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Leave a comment below if that doesn't make sense. I'll try to explain it a little bit better. I did want to go through this. Real quick. They have all these Miracle-Gro potting soil. I'm sorry, not potting soil. There's potting soil right next to me. Down here, there's some potting soil. I'm talking about garden soil. Don't put potting soil in your garden, guys. It's too expensive. It's too expensive to use as a way to fluff stuff up. There's cheaper stuff. I mean, this is $4 for something dollars for some garden soil. Imagine how much that's going to take to make a real impact. Again, if you're thinking ahead, right? If you're thinking ahead and you've built your beds and you have some local arborist company come in and dump some chips, and you're making these beds and you're buying butcher paper at, well, Lowe's I think actually sells the non-treated butcher paper for packing that you can pack with. Same thing, painters use it. That's what we're talking about. You roll that out and put some mulch on it, and you can make it thick, it doesn't matter. And then let that mulch just rot. Let that mulch rot, and you've got time, right? Because you're waiting on the big sales, you're waiting for your moment to strike, and the only thing that's happening is your biofertility is doubling every single month because you've got a warm or a cool, hospitable environment for your soil microbes. Don't spend the $5 on the potting soil to then fluff it up. Spend that money on plants. See where I'm going with this? You end up buying more plants. And if you can get them on clearance, you're buying twice as many plants as you normally would have thought you would with the budget that you've allotted yourself.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. And may God have mercy on your soul.
Realistically, it's not my money, right? You spend your money however you want, but I want you to spend it wisely. Oh, geez Louise. Mulch is mulch, guys. You know, I heard somebody say one time, well, I don't want to buy mulch at the local recycling center because I don't know what's in it. Well, usually what's in it, a tree that's fallen or somebody's having a tree taken out that was planted too close to their house, it's usually 1 to 2 inch size. They're not grinding up the big giant logs. They're grinding up the branches, which is where all the nutrition is. That's the healthiest part. The actively growing parts of the tree is where all the nutrients are. They grind that up, they dump it in your yard, and then you put it on your plants. It's got leaves mixed into it. It's always really good stuff. It always breaks down well, and that's why you can put more of it on than you would if it was just a straight hardwood, right? Straight hardwood, I like to stick it around 4 inches, but a lot of arborist chips I'll put down at 8 inches because I know it's real fluffy. It's got a lot of leaves and things like that in it. It's just going to rot. It's going to turn delicious. Just letting you know, Chef Ramsay would be envious of how delicious your soil is going to become after it's been sitting there for a year. And to tell you the truth, then you can always top dress with something more aesthetically pleasing if that's what you want to do. But normally I just kind of rake it and I get the big sticks out of it and stuff, and it looks like everything else once the sun's hit it. And if we do a good job of planning out our landscapes, in 3 years we're not going to see the mulch anyway. That's my rub on mulches and soil amendments. Tips I can give you is, let's spend our money as wisely as possible. Let's use it on plants, and we'll use it on mulch, and we'll use it on drip irrigation, and we'll use it on 2-year fertilizer tablets and beneficial fungus and beneficial bacteria. Let's create a sustainable landscape so that we can mitigate the amount of maintenance that we have to do, because a flower bed that doesn't have its biofertility taken care of, we're not cognizant of the fact that there's more living creatures underneath the ground than there is on top, then we're going to have to do more maintenance because our plants aren't going to thrive. That's what we want them to do. We don't want them to survive. You can survive in the middle of a field. We want our plants to have Wi-Fi, right? And indoor plumbing and snuggies. Snuggies? Snuggies. Isn't there a celebrity name? No, that's Snooky. Hey, let's go over tools real quick. So we're back here in the tool section. So not everybody is blessed to have a $800 setup like I do with the Makita right angle drill and the power planter with the reinforced teeth and all the stuff that I need here in Missouri to dig a hole. But I have spent my fair share of blood, sweat, and tears digging holes in this environment, and I'm a very good friend with the shovel. So my favorite shovel that I own is this little guy right here, because this is what I'm going to use to get the soil out of the hole, right? Then I typically like a forged head shovel, so a shovel that I'm going to be able to drive straight down into the ground. I typically don't use my feet unless it's like a clay, you know, to push down on the soil. I usually don't do that. Usually it's more of a stabbing motion around here because our soil is horrible. Nutritious but full of rocks. So when something you can carry, something like this, something that you can have about waist high, right? And you can drive it into the ground, right? In a circle, and then use your foot and try to get that piece that you just created out of there. Obviously the power planter is definitely the less labor intensive way to go. But that's a good option too. And now you're looking at that little shovel, $13, like a waist high square shovel. But it's not a transfer shovel, guys. This is a shovel for digging. I mean, look, I'm digging with this shovel. I'm not moving material like gravel from the flower bed or from the back of a truck into a wheelbarrow so I can put it in a flower bed. That's a transfer shovel. Another thing that a lot of people forget to use or forget to utilize is the amount of surface area that a shovel has. So a bigger shovel, it's a lot harder to get into the ground. So if you don't have great soil, you might think about a trenching shovel. So typically these are the shovels that people would use to create trenches that they're going to put irrigation in. That's what we use these a lot for, right? So I don't need a big hole that's 8 feet wide when I'm putting 1-inch poly tubing down for an irrigation system, or in my case, mostly repairing irrigation that I screw up. So less surface area on this one, which means you're going to be taking less of a bite, which if you've gotten older, if your shoulders aren't good anymore, if your elbows and your wrists aren't good anymore, then this is a good way to dig some holes in tough soil. Plus, 2 or 3 shovelfuls of that, you're planting a 1-gallon plant. Like, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do. These are Spades, or what I call Spades. There's a brand called Sharpshooter, which have a lot of us, again, right? So minimizing the amount of surface area that we're pulling up, right? So it's going to go in the ground a little easier. A lot more pounds per square inch right there on the tip, especially if you're standing on it. But these are nice and tall. It's about a waist high. And again, I'm mostly just driving this into the ground and working around in a circle until I can pop something out. I typically use this for transplanting because I can get very deep. So when I'm pulling something out to separate it, I will use something like this. What do they call this? They call this the drain spade. I don't know what that means. We just call them spades. Yeah, and that one was $42. So that's the one that's gonna, there's just a square point shovel or a transfer shovel. This is what what I was talking about in transfer shovel. There's no better tool to get gravel out of the back of the truck into the wheelbarrow. This is the one. This is what you use. A round shovel, you'll be at it all day. Just doesn't hold enough. And then one last thing I wanted to talk about. There's all these tools that you end up purchasing because you think like a specialty tool, but here's the thing. They've been gardening for a long time. They probably had something that looked like this. It's just a hoe. Right? That's all it is. This will do the vast majority of everything that you need to do when it comes to maintenance, like weeding and things like that. So instead of getting something like this, which these are good. These are good for scraping, right? The top mass away from the root, separating it from the root, right? This works pretty good, but it's $20. This is $21. And just use the corner of this and just pop it out. So, I mean, use this. Again, these little 3-fork cultivators are great and everything, but I own one of these, but I find myself using the hoe the most because it's just so multifaceted in the things it can do. It does work in every situation almost. Oh, and pitchforks, what I use to mulch is and they're a little expensive. They're $42 for one of these. I like this 5-prong pitchfork. This is what I like to use to mulch. I don't use the big giant mulch. I might use that to transfer mulch from the back of the truck into the wheelbarrow, but this is what I use when I'm actually shoveling or when I'm actually moving mulch from the wheelbarrows and I'm spreading it out. See, if I hold it like this, right, I can move mulch around like that, right? I'm just moving the mulch around. I dump a pile with the wheelbarrow and then I move mulch around like this, right? Kind of like a rake. It turns into a rake if you flip it upside down. Then I flip it over like this and I run it along the mulch to smooth it out, and then I give it a little tamp. And then I smooth it out a little bit more and I tamp it down a little bit. This thing does about 4 different jobs for me in the landscape. So that's worth it. I use this constantly. I use my hoe constantly. I use that little tiny shovel, especially when I'm planting little stuff in like my berm or something like that, where I don't really need the power planter. Sometimes I just use it because it's fun, but I use those tools all the time. I don't use these other tools that I've purchased. My leaf rake, I only use that once every once in a while. My rock rake, I only use that once every once in a while. It's not something you have to have. So anyway, that's tools. All right, so I'm here over by the daffodils. It's daffodil season. So I'm gonna wait until it gets a little colder to plant some of these, but I'm probably gonna go ahead and buy them now. And what I normally do is I just throw them in a cardboard box and I slide them underneath the bed until it's time for me to plant them. Now, I looked at, you get, for $15, you can get 35 of these, or probably more up my alley, for 20 bucks, I can get 40. So 45. So I'm gonna get 2 bags of these daffodils. So I'll have 90 just regular King Alfred daffodils. Those are my favorite. Now remember, daffodils are deer resistant. Nothing eats them because they're poisonous. So anybody that has deer problems, daffodils. Anybody that has a whole ton of shade and you have a hard time brightening up a shady spot, especially earlier in the spring, daffodils are going to be a good way to do that, because when these are popping up and they're sending their leaves out, there's no leaves on the trees. So they're getting full sun. And then, you know, plant them in a place where you don't have to trim them back. They're not going to aesthetically compromise your landscape. And let them just build up as much simple sugar as they want. And then by the end of July, they're all gone anyway. But I'm going to grab 2 bags of these, so I'm going to spend like $40. Deal. And if you are going to plant a ton of bulbs, I'm just telling you, get a power planter. Get a power planter. You can pick them up at Lowe's. You can pick them up on the Power Planter website. I've got a discount code for 10% off. It is what it is. You can feel free to use that. But you are not going to be disappointed if you're planting bulbs and you get one of these, because you can use this on any drill. You don't need a big old beefy giant Makita right angle drill like I have. Pick up a power planter. All right, guys, I sure appreciate you coming and shopping with me at Landscape Rescue. Unfortunately, we just didn't find a whole lot that I was interested in taking home. They're kind of been wiped out from the clearance side. Now, we did get 90 King Alfred daffodil bulbs, which I can always find a place for those. So this is Stuart Moore. Thank you very much for letting me into your home to talk about plants.